Bitcoin, is it off to the races again, or is this another sell the rip opportunity as Bitcoin crosses $83,000? Also, the great decoupling that no one saw coming. It's not Bitcoin, definitely not Ethereum. So then what in the world in crypto has decoupled from literally everything else? And should you have some exposure to it? The answer might shock you. Also, we have our man Forrest joining us. Excited to have him on today. We got some Ripple news we're going to talk about. And just the overall place where the markets are as the tariff tensions seemingly are easing with everyone except China. Does this provide an area to where Bitcoin can really start rallying and maybe, just maybe, cross the 100K mark and off to new all-time highs? We're going to talk about that and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency content, where we take old, boring, stale information, just like my co-host, repackage it up in a fun and sexy way. You know what? We also throw some price predictions your way.
Yeah, you know what? Fridays is casual Friday here at Sin City Crypto. Rob, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I'm casually amazing. Also, we are back above 80K comfortably. We're at that $83,000 mark. You know, big rally. You know, NASDAQ is up slightly, but Bitcoin is flexing on everything. And
last chance.
This is the last chance to buy Bitcoin before it goes to $5 million. Thank you.
Forrest, welcome back to the show, man. Did you miss us?
Hey.
You missed us so much, didn't you?
I did.
You missed this, didn't you?
Oh, there. It's been a few weeks. I can see Rob's been lifting for the last couple of weeks. So looks you're looking buff, man.
Yeah, he's trying to find a girl finally that he doesn't have to pay for. So the thing here is, Forrest, the thing here, Forrest, is this really the last chance again for us to? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to ask that stupid question because, in fact, it is a very dumb question. Now, Forrest, it's been a while since you've been on our show. A lot has happened. I want to get your quick thoughts on market sentiment now and kind of where we're at. Where are you mentally with the market? Are you excited? Are you kind of on edge? How are you playing this market? How are you making sure you're protecting your capital, but also making money as well?
I'm very, very bullish, like extremely high targets bullish. But we're kind of like teetering on the edge of like, if we don't hold the levels and reclaim the levels we need to reclaim relatively soon, it does get pretty dicey. And there is a world where the bullish thesis is invalidated and we go into a bit of a bear market. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to like 300K plus Bitcoin. And I don't throw out those targets lightly at all. You guys know I've always been very, very conservative as far as targets, especially for Bitcoin.
You have.
I personally think this is like setting up over the next like 90 to 150 days to potentially be like a 2017 style blow off. There's just a lot of similarities, and we've had like this big shock, geopolitical shock, and a lot of times these big events are what shake up the markets and cause a lot of capital to be reallocated, and give you the ingredients for a big blow off top in certain assets.
So you mentioned levels, Forrest. What are those levels? And if you want to pull up a chart and do that, or if you have them kind of in mind.
And just a little insight here on Bitcoin price. Nice big rally this morning on the last, say, 20 minutes. Has moved from 83.2 to 83.4. So
wow, what a huge move!
$600 swing. You know, it's pretty good. I mean, 24 hours ago we were under 80K, and so getting closer to that $85,000 mark. So haven't been there in quite some time. So. When was the last time we were 85?
It was actually very recently, wasn't it?
Okay, well, yeah.
Because of that big
on the second, we got there for a wick, but then the last time we traded there for more than a day was back in March 25th.
Forrest, what you got?
Yeah, so levels to reclaim, like, so We've actually reclaimed a big one. And this was where, like, when we started pushing off of like 78, 79 down here, so I started getting really, really bullish. I posted on Twitter like a picture of bear skins. I don't know if you guys saw it, but just like this was, I think, a very nasty bear trap that, you know, we kind of reverted most of the gains after the Trump tweet. And then we just started grinding up. I'm actually, as we speak, just like salivatingly bullish. Like I almost can't even contain my excitement, because this is just like exactly what we want to see. Like, we're breaking out of the wedge as we speak. We're doing everything like Bitcoin needs to do. We've come in, we saw the double bottom, like the W pattern double bottom. We came up and made a higher high. We came down and made a higher low. And now we're putting in yet another higher high on the 4 hour. This is like got me very, very, very excited. Now, the prices that we're at right now could absolutely be revisited in the future. We could run this up to 80, 90K, right? Come up to this potential neckline on an inverse head and shoulders, come all the way back down lower than where we're at right now, set a higher low. And that would be a very painful correction, just like this one was over here that we just got through. But what we're doing is we're building market structure. I would like to see us, like, in the, you know, next week or two, have put in this inverse head and shoulders and be setting up. And, you know, this is a pattern that has targets that take us over those key levels that we need to get through. This is like a big supply zone up here where we chopped around before we broke down, right? We retested it, got rejected, retested it, got rejected. But if we can print an inverse head and shoulders pattern that can push us through this supply zone, that is the level where, you know, a lot of people, I think we'll get to like over 100K Bitcoin again. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I missed it. You know, I should have bought down at 75, 80. But then over 100, it's just like, it gets more bullish, even, you know, the higher we go. This is like just an amazing setup. So this is our range low down here, you know, 94. We've got a bunch of supply up here. Reclaim the range. That's very bullish. And we can start chopping upwards through that. And that sets us up into May, June, July for a nice summer pump to new all-time highs. And I think that's what's going to happen. I'm very, very bullish. As you can kind of see here, these levels I've had marked out. And I've been saying for a while in the Discord group that anything under 80,000, right? Anything under 80,000, which is this level right here. So all of this, buying Bitcoin under 80K, I've been a strong believer that under 80K is going to age very well. I said ideally under 70 to 75K range is where you really want to be going hard with some buys. But then under 70K, you start getting, you know, under this level, it starts to get really dicey, and you can get, you know, some invalidations, and essentially you just get trapped with a lot of bag holders that want to get out and sell if they get to break even. So I think we did like the absolute perfect bottom. We had the bullish divergence, the wedge. We're trying to break out of it now. We're not out of the woods yet, but this is doing exactly what it needs to do to convince me that we are going significantly higher. Yeah, just everything about this screams bullish. And I think if we break out of this and reclaim these levels, we're probably going to zip to like 130, 140, 150K relatively quickly. And then I think over a longer time frame, a trade war is super bullish for Bitcoin. It's like it's like what Bitcoin was built for. And I just think that's the scenario where you get like your crazy high targets. So everything lining up for Bitcoin.
There was already news that China and Russia were settling some energy trade with Bitcoin. I believe it was oil or gas or one of the two. And so I did I think it was Tuesday when Rob wasn't here, I did an entire kind of breakdown of what a trade war turning into a currency war, what that means for Bitcoin, and why it's actually a bullish thing. And on top of what you mentioned, Forrest, the other thing is these countries start having to devalue their currency, especially China, a country that their citizens have trillions of dollars just sitting in their bank accounts in yuan. There's going to be a flight of capital there for the people that have a lot of money. And well, where are they going to go? Let's say you can't buy US dollars. Let's say the trade war is that bad. Where else are you going to do? Gold? Sure. But we know the difference. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the difference between gold and Bitcoin, but obviously Bitcoin is the superior choice for store of value in comparison to gold as far as, being malleable and all that fun stuff. And so, interesting take. Anything you want to add, Rob, before I kind of jump into the first topic there?
Yeah, I just think that people are realistically just red light, green light, pump the brakes, squid games, doll turner head when it comes to the tariffs. That's a lot more than that, man. You know what? It's not like, hey, Donald Trump announced tariffs, time to sell. Hey, Donald Trump paused tariffs, time to buy.
He said it's time to buy.
But the problem is there's a lot more to this. And, you have baseline tariffs like you talked about. Pausing tariffs still has the same effect. It's just the can has been kicked down the road. And so I don't know. I just think that right now we're going to find ourselves in a situation where certain items will be more expensive. There is currently a 25% tariff on all cars imported. That has not been paused. And so over half of the cars in America it's right around 50-50 are built overseas. And so, a lot of that's going to be more expensive. I know that, it's going to lead customers to go and make choices that are a little bit more financially responsible. And so if you only have $30,000 to buy a car, well, you're just not going to go over to Hyundai and Kia.
Or you're going to buy used.
Or you're just going to go down to Ford or GM, which, funny enough, Ford and GM do produce a lot of their cars in Canada and Mexico, particularly Mexico. Tesla is being the only company that produces 100% of its cars.
Used cars are about to go through the roof
in the United States.
Used car prices are going to skyrocket. So that 2012 Hyundai you've been sitting on, that's only worth maybe $1,000, $2,000, real bad paint job. The inside's kind of messed up because
I think that's going to be for foreign cars. I think that let's just
it's an import tariff. They can't tariff something that's already here.
Yeah, I know, but here's the thing: if you're gonna looking for a new car, you're just gonna go to American made.
Right.
If you're looking for a Mercedes, you might not buy it new because of the 25% price increase, but you'll probably go ahead and buy one
used.
Yeah. And then those are gonna create a supply and demand shock, and then those prices for those will go up. Also, a lot of electronics made overseas, and so that's gonna be interesting.
I was looking forward to the new
10% blanket tariff on those as well. So all of your, electronics,
it's going to be fine. Apple's going to make their iPhones here. We're only going to have to pay an extra $5,000 for the phones. It's going to be okay, Robin. Relax. It's going to be not good. So this headline here, crypto market rebounds on improving macroeconomic sentiment. You also had this as well. Bitcoin holds 82K, now almost 84K as US dollar falls to 3-year low and PPI inflation drops sharply. Also, CPI, core CPI, all down. Forrest, is there any macro overhang? We're seeing a lot of analysts, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and just individual analysts as well. Even BlackRock came out and said inflation is going to skyrocket. We're going into a recession. Are those any of those potential negatives kind of weighing on you a little bit? Are you what's your kind of take on those macro?
I mean, the negatives are bullish for scarce assets. This is why gold is at all-time highs. I've been a big fan of gold. I think silver's about to rip. I think Bitcoin's about to rip. What are these tariffs doing? These tariffs are weakening everybody's economy, right? It's bad for the U.S. Everybody loses in a trade war. That's kind of the thing, except for Bitcoin and gold and silver are winners in a trade war. Weaker economies across the board, like you said, is going to cause a lot of people to print. They're going to print and debase their currencies. People are going to panic into. I mean, gold is the last resort collateral. It is like the oldest, longest standing store of value that there is. When people panic, they go into gold. I just think anything that's quote unquote bad for the economy, it's going to be bad for a lot of companies and a lot of stocks. But I think this is like where crypto and stocks just totally decorrelate. I think some stocks will do fine. I think some companies will change their supply chains and they'll be fine. They'll start manufacturing in India or whatever versus manufacturing in China. That'll take time. I think in general, inflation is not going to be bad nearly as bad as what people think. And that's mainly I think there will be a lag. I think we're going to print and that'll drive inflation up, but I think there's a plan to offset that by drilling very heavily and bringing energy prices down. So I don't think inflation is going to be nearly as bad as people think when you have cheaper and cheaper energy. But still the effect on the debasing of the currency will still be there. And I think people are going to want to protect against that via gold, silver, Bitcoin, scarce assets, and then just the capital controls and sanctions that come in a trade war. That is like what Bitcoin is built for. It's like in my opinion, the primary use case of Bitcoin. It is the most liquid asset. So if we're at a trade war with China and you're a company, bank, institution, individual, wealthy person trying to send $1 billion to China, and it's illegal to send $1 billion to China, or there's no way to do it, through the traditional banking system, you can send $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is highly liquid, to China, and no one can stop you. So if countries want to, start conducting trade in Bitcoin or other highly liquid cryptocurrencies, that's the case. These are decentralized networks. Governments can't stop the Bitcoin network. So you guys know I've not ever been like the craziest Bitcoin maxi, but I think the economic global situation right now is just the perfect storm for Bitcoin. This is the most amazing situation possible for Bitcoin. And that's why I think like some of these ridiculous targets like 300, 400K are actually potentially feasible for the first time. This is the first time I've believed in the big targets just because of what we're seeing. Like there's actually a reason for people to buy Bitcoin now in large quantities. So I think the worse the economies get is just, it's good for scarce assets.
You bring up,
there's no other way to put it.
You bring up such a good point, and there's been numerous times in history where an economy is faltering and people try to leave, right? Capital flight. And the government says, no, hold on. You're not sending any money outside the country. And then you're stuck. Like Forrest said, to his point, what are you going to do? And that, again, was something that I covered on Tuesday. I said, capital flight. And you can't, if you can't buy dollars and send them, okay. You can't send out yuan, okay. What are you going to do? Ship a ton of gold? FedEx priority? No. What is the other option? The only other option. It's pretty simple.
You also mentioned the weakening of economies, essentially what we're seeing with the tariff war, and that no one wins with that. And just quick insight. I mean, that's from a perspective of how much goods cost. If you look at Portugal, like, I'm Portuguese. Portugal is on the euro. So
why
the
are you
euro,
always picking on Portugal, man?
So here's the thing. Like, now I'm just giving you some context and perspective. So in Portugal, they use the euro. They're one of the weakest economies out of the EU, and so their currency is the euro. And so the products that are made in Portugal are very cheap, respectively speaking. You can go there and have lunch for $8, $6, like a nice lunch, like a full, sit down restaurant lunch. Dinner, $25. Now coffee's like 50 cents, things of that nature. Services are very cheap. Taxis cheap. Everything there is cheap. But anything imported outside has the price tag of a euro. And so the average income for someone in Portugal is about less than $1,000 a month. Now you make less than $1,000 a month, but the car is still priced in euros. So the car is still the same price as it is in France and in Italy and in Germany. And so a $40,000 car for someone that makes $800 a month is just priced out of there. Anything exported, anything outside the country is relatively higher. So a television is essentially $1,000, $2,000, which is, 2 months of your salary. Car is, you have to go very old or used or cheap car, and all electronics, your cameras, everything made out of the country. And then if you don't have a mattress factory, the mattress is 5 times the price as it is.
You got to have a mattress firm down there, right?
So basically everything in the city, in the country, is expensive that isn't made there. And I find that if these tariffs, if we stay the course with the tariffs, we're going to find ourselves on vacation one day, and you're going to look at the price of a phone, or you're going to look at the price of a TV or a car. You're going to be like, bro, did you see They have brand new cars here for $18,000. And it's the same one that's in the US that costs 35. I think that's the reality that's going to set in if things don't change. Now, will you get American made products? Now, America is a country that has a big industrial sector. At one point, we produced most of our own goods. So I guess the idea of the tariffs is to get back to that. And
But
now,
Rob,
a country like Portugal, they're not a manufacturing country. So
but if you go
can't.
if you go to South Korea or Japan, you're not going to see they consume what they make, correct? Here in the U.S. is where
For
you
electronics, yes, but I mean they don't have the agriculture. They're bringing in agriculture from India and other parts of Asia, and so they have open trade for their region. But yeah, they make their own cars. Hyundais and Kias come from South Korea, but they have a large population and they have a massive amount of imports there, and so they're relying on trade. But do they? I don't know what their trade barriers look like there, but I'm just saying that, hey man, just prepare yourself for things getting more expensive, and if it's not American made, because we got a lot of imports, and I don't think you guys realize how much we rely on imports.
If I can take a second and give the man next to me some credit here, I just want you guys to know that in building the studio in the back, the original plan was to not buy the equipment yet, and let's wait. My man Rob over here, he was pushing. Guys, we got to do it.
It was like Game of Thrones. I was like, winter is coming.
And
get the cameras now before they go up.
The man was on point because I think we called one of our suppliers yesterday, and the one of the equipment we ordered about a week ago went up by, I think, 18% or 20%. And so, Rob, thank you for spending all the company's money.
Thank you. I'm not finished yet.
All right. Forrest, you mentioned, we all kind of mentioned gold, right? Trump tariff chaos might actually be good for Bitcoin, says Grayscale. And they kind of reference that, hey, it's things like gold. But then when you look at gold's been absolutely ripping. This is on the 4-hour. We're going to go to the daily for gold. Gold is up since... This might not sound like a big number to all the crypto native people, but since the 7th, so since Monday, gold is up 10%. So that is a massive move. And if we plop a Bitcoin on here, Bitcoin chart, you can see they're fairly inversely correlated. And so are you both kind of saying that we're going to see a recoupling of gold and Bitcoin? Because historically, it hasn't really been that way. For the most part, we see gold rip, Bitcoin's going down. Bitcoin, I think we can all agree, has been trading more like a risk on asset. I don't know, Ford, do you think what's happening now is kind of the catalyst for Bitcoin to actually start trading like gold and not just be a narrative?
Yeah, let me also just share a chart. This is the value of one gold mark in paper marks in Germany in like the early 1900s, vertical straight up. That is what I believe is going to happen again with paper money. So vertical straight up Bitcoin, vertical straight up gold. I mean, I one of the smartest person I know. Let me get back to my screen here. The smartest person I know in all of macro.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
You took my joke, idiot. Sorry for it. Jesus.
In all of macro and all of trading, very, very highly, just been around for a while. He's like, you kind of an older guy that's been around. The other day he said, we can't rule out a plus $1,000 day in gold in the near future.
What?
The other person, one of the best traders I know, has been bullish on gold since 2000. His targets are $16,000 over the next couple of years.
It's at what, at 3,000? It's at
3,300.
So I know these targets sound just absolutely crazy, but I mean, we're in a situation like the bond market's blowing up right now. Nobody wants to buy U.S. debt. They're trying to bring rates down and they're skyrocketing. The value of bonds and U.S. treasuries are just tanking. We're in a situation where the Fed is about to have to step in and buy our own debt, print money to buy our own debt, like the Bank of Japan has been doing.
Yep.
Who's dumping our bonds? Japan is, because they've got to go and buy their own currency to keep it from going to just devaluing to zero.
Bingo.
Like the case for like, there could be a short-term pullback. There could be like a 1 to 2 year pullback. They could stick a Band-Aid on this and gold goes from where it's at right now down 15%. But the genie's out of the bottle. Get your money into, and I don't give financial advice, but you want to be in gold, silver, and if we're lucky, Bitcoin will act like digital gold. I think that it will. I think there's a really strong debate to be made that, historically it's traded more like a stock, more like levered NASDAQ or levered QQQ. So I get that. I'm not going to sit and say with 100% certainty that Bitcoin's going to act like digital gold and that's going to go vertical. I think that it is. But I think gold's going to go vertical. I think you look at the chart of what happened in Germany in the early 1900s. 100 years later, we have the same problem, just at a global scale. Like I don't see how gold doesn't just go vertical up. It's going to get ridiculous. And the thing about gold too is it's so under-owned. I don't know anybody under the age of 40 besides a few traders that got on this early that own any gold. Nobody has gold, right?
I got gold.
You got gold?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, but the keychain doesn't
gold
work,
and silver, and I think silver hasn't even taken off yet. Silver's been kind of vertical up today, kind of recovering. It had a big kind of crash. Let me not to go off on a tangent here. I do want to share a silver chart. If I can kind of put this into perspective for people, just how ridiculously bullish I am on silver. And it's because we've seen this play. We saw this play out in the late 70s with inflation, right? Here, silver went to $50, which adjusted for inflation is the equivalent of $800 silver today. So silver went from from 76 to 80 in 4 years. Silver went from $4 to $50. It 12x'd, right? We are seeing the exact same pattern on silver. It's just this long cupping pattern where it's grinding upwards. It's about to accelerate. So if you feel like you missed the boat on gold and silver, I don't think it's even started yet. I think it's just going to slowly creep upwards, and maybe it takes a year or two to play out. Maybe that we've hit the acceleration point. Maybe the trade war is thrust us into this acceleration. But I think like $800 silver is not out of the question. That is literally what the equivalent. Like if we adjust for the M2 money supply, if we adjust for inflation, this is the equivalent of $800 silver in 1980, right? Like I'm not trying to sound like that. I know I sound crazy. I know people are like $32 silver. It's going to go to $800. Yeah, right. Like I think it is. I think we're going to see $800 silver. I think we're going to see $16,000 gold. I think we're going to see $300,000 or $400,000 Bitcoin. And that might sound like an awesome scenario if you're invested, but it's a really crappy scenario if you're sitting in dollars or you're sitting in, potentially stocks, potentially, other assets that don't do this. So again, it could be a local top. It could cool down for a couple weeks, could cool down for months, but in the bigger picture, it's really time to start thinking about protecting your purchasing power. And credit to you guys, because I know you've been pounding the table on Bitcoin forever for protecting purchasing power. You've been dead on the money, and I think it's only going to go higher. So yeah, I don't know what the question you asked was, but I just derailed.
I always like to ask people, when I ask people questions, I always try to think of the people behind the camera, right? The people in the chat, the people watching, what kind of questions would they have? And so my thing is there's so much information coming out every day that the average person is probably confused. Some people get scared, some people get excited. And so these are questions that are like, okay, well, what do I do? How do I protect my capital? So that's kind of the question I've been asking. I think that was a great breakdown for us. I do have a little bit of gold and silver. It's just good to not have all your eggs in one basket. You definitely shouldn't have all your eggs in a fiat basket. Forget about that. So at the very least, get it out of that. And so I think you're right on the head. Now, we all talk about couplings, decouplings. There's been one project that has completely decoupled from the stock market, from gold, from Bitcoin, from everything. And that is none other than the Fartcoin. Forrest, Fartcoin sees explosive growth as it decouples from the altcoin market. Can you pull up a Fartcoin chart while I ask Robin if he has any Fartcoin and what he thinks about Fartcoin's future? Robin?
You know, honestly, when it started to break out,
this has been kind of crazy.
It was a little over a week ago. I said, hey, guys, would not be surprised to see a prolonged breakout. It seems like Fartcoin was oddly rallying a week ago. And I was like, I would not be surprised to see this thing keep pushing. Something about it is kind of standing out to me. And well, here it is. I probably should have beat the drum a little harder on that one. Maybe I should have pushed on it a little more, try to squeeze that thought out. But what?
Give me some knuckles. I see what you did there. I see what you did. That's good.
Did have a little I got let me see here.
Comics relief.
Here you go.
Don't show movie clips.
Here's 2050. I see your 7,000. I raise you 8,000.
Hey, you can't rule anything out. Forrest, I see you got a Fartcoin chart queued up. Please, sir, tell us, should we get in now or should we wait?
No, so we posted the Fartcoin entry in the Discord on this inverse head and shoulders as this was kind of breaking out of this bull flag here. So it was around like 50, high 50s.
You did.
And actually, right now it's at like 93 cents. So like the breakouts happened in the short term, you know, and it's still kind of running. I saw somebody try to call top on Fartcoin this morning and it was like, this thing's just vertical accumulation. This thing can go pretty hard, but I wouldn't be entering now personally. Now I do think that this is probably, I mean, this could run all the way to like $2 to $3 all-time highs and then come back down for like an inverse head and shoulders. But look, the thing with meme coins is there's always a flavor of the month, right? There's like, first it was Dogecoin, then it was Shiba Inu, then it was Pepe, then it was Bonk, then it was Whiff, then it was Popcat, now it's Fartcoin. Now you look at all those other ones, they've been underperforming. So at some point, the Fartcoin outperformance is going to slow down, and you're going to start seeing some other meme coin more than likely kind of steal the attention. That being said, I think for the time being, this is the momentum play on the furthest end of the risk curve that you can imagine, being in like the craziest, meme coin. Now, I did pull a fractal this morning from this is MicroStrategy's performance versus S&P 500. And the reason I've got this up here is because it's printing the same pattern as Fartcoin. It's just lagging behind it. You have the inverse head and shoulders into the bull flag, right? So this is MicroStrategy's performance against the S&P 500, which is essentially levered Bitcoin versus the stock market, which I think is going to break out. And it already is. Like, I would imagine this was this morning, right? And posted in the Discord, MicroStrategy versus the S&P 500. No, it's still in this bull flag. I think it's going to start to, try to break out of here with the inverse head and shoulders, the Fartcoin pattern. So I think there's, this makes me even more bullish on Bitcoin. So yeah, I wouldn't buy here, but you might get an entry, later on down the line on, some form of a pullback. Even if it's just like here, I mean, you could enter it like in the 80s if you get a deep pullback, but this is super, super high risk. I know like it's a great way to lose money is buying, Fartcoin or Popcat or whatever. I'm long from like 60 cents and I hope it goes higher, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to the average person. That's unless you just have some gambling capital that you want to, take a small position with.
Thank you for that, Forrest. We talk about store of value and volatility. Well, there's one cryptocurrency where it's held its true store of value. That is my boy ETH. You would have just held ETH for 6 years, 7 years. You wouldn't have lost a single dime, guys. Keep that in mind next time you think about your...
I was curious. So I haven't really gotten Forrest's opinion on ETH. What's kind of your state on ETH and just the network effect? Not so much the chart, or if you want to talk to a chart, you can. But do you think that ETH has its staying power at number 2 on the market cap list? Because I feel like it's losing against Bitcoin. It's losing market cap share against Solana. Definitely lost a lot against XRP. Do you hold a lot of faith that we'll get this big rally out of ETH in the second half and reverse this falling against Bitcoin kind of narrative? Because it's struggling.
Yeah, let me just do 2 seconds to pull up a chart. It's going to take a second, but I think like it really paints the picture of the kind of the situation that let's see, Amazon. The situation, it's going to take me just a second to fire up this chart, but it's just a strikingly similar thing. So this was Amazon, right? And this is like, it's kind of like do or die right now for Ethereum. Let me remove that, kind of show you guys this kind of downtrend into this bounce that we've just had. It's very, very similar to Amazon's, post 08, like, coming out of the dot-com bubble, coming out of the 08-09 recession. And I think there's a chance that it follows this. I haven't given up hope entirely on Ethereum. It literally, like, this down here is Amazon, right? So we had this big dot-com bubble, crashed, didn't recover all the way in the following bubble. So we had, the first 2020 bubble, didn't recover all the way yet, but we've kind of back tested that trend line, and we could fire off here if something fundamentally shifts with Ethereum, whether that's like rapid stablecoin adoption, and Ethereum's the network that that starts to occur on. It's completely possible. But what I will say is that ETH is in a very, I'll stop sharing my screen here. ETH's in a very tough spot because like the whole idea of like why I'm bullish on Bitcoin in a trade war, because it's the most liquid decentralized network. So like obviously ETH's pretty dang decentralized too, and you can send ETH just like you can send Bitcoin. But the problem with that is like you're gonna default to the most liquid one. If you're trying to send $1 billion across borders in a decentralized manner, like you want the receiver to be able to cash that $1 billion worth of Bitcoin out with low slippage. Right? So you want the most liquidity possible. ETH has less liquidity than Bitcoin. At the same time, if you're talking about like adoption and growth of NFTs and DeFi and stable coins on chain and real world assets, the problem with ETH is it's kind of not winning that battle either, because it's a little bit slower, a little bit less expensive, a little less scalable. The scalability track that they went with was outsourcing to layer 2s. Well, all the layer 2s accrue the value and strip it away from the Ethereum token, right? Base all their fees, like Coinbase. Coinbase basically makes all the money that would have been able to potentially accrue to Ethereum. Ethereum outsources its transactions to Base, and Coinbase makes the money, not ETH holders. So if they fundamentally shift something for ETH, I do have hope that it can make a comeback, but I've got to see something change for it. The pattern is there. The TA is there for it to bounce here, but it really something has to shift. Whether they they change the layer 2 scalability, whether they somehow manage to scale on the layer 1 and accrue value back to the Ethereum holders. I don't know what it's going to be, but something has to change. Otherwise, it's just stuck between being a worse version of Solana or XRP as far as like a decentralized network goes, and a less liquid version of Bitcoin. So it's just like it's kind of the middle ground where it's not winning on any one thing.
I think we're going to look back, and anyone that bought ETH at $1,400 is either going to be the biggest genius ever or not the biggest genius.
No, they're going to be sitting there saying, "What an idiot!"
I don't know about what an idiot. You'll still make money at $1,400, even if ETH just collapses. Anyway,
they're sitting there, their portfolio, like, look at my portfolio. It's going to be like Dash, EOS, Ethereum.
Anyways,
a Squirrel Coin.
There's no Squirrel Coin.
Which one? The
Peanut.
Squirrel
was one.
Peanut.
Peanut.
You leave Peanut out of this. Robin, go ahead.
Bitcoin is smelling that 84,000. Hey, you know what? I mean, you can get mad at me all you want. 82 to 84 is pretty significant, man. Since we started the show, so I'll leave it there. Taking a quick peek at the altcoins.
Hold on. When you brought up Bitcoin, you said from 83.2 to 83.4. That's why I made fun of you.
No, I said from 82.8 to 83.4.
Okay, good.
That's when we started.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
I'm not spending 5 minutes on this. Go.
Thank you. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
All right. So, altcoins. Fart coins at number 2. You got what is this? Oni X coin. You familiar with this one?
Onyx coin?
Yeah.
Oni X coin.
Onyx coin. I don't know. Anyways,
I'm not really.
I've seen it a few times, but not much down today. And so you only have one
Curve Dow is crushing.
One down on the 24 hours. You take a look at what's up on the week. I mean, it's a lot. A big list here. We're over 10%. You got Hyperliquid up 30, Jasmine up 25, Curve up 23.
Was that AB?
Caspa performing very well. We saw this down to 5 cents, about 5.5 cents a couple days ago. We were telling you this is probably a good buying opportunity. Look here on the 7 days. We saw it at 5 cents, 5.3 cents. And so we've been telling you like, hey, I think this is a great opportunity. I think I said like clip it or something like that. I don't even remember, but I know last week, highly bullish on Caspa's current price. I think when Bitcoin rallies and we see alts rally again, I think that there's been enough cool off period in Caspa and it being such a strong community. I have a feeling this thing is going to break out, get up to that 18 to 20 cents range again. And I think that'll happen in a very short term. I think that if Bitcoin gets up to that 95, 100K, expect big things out of Caspa. And then also XRP holding that $2 support pretty well. Solana at 120. I think Solana might be the most undervalued project here in the top 20, I would say. I mean, I could make an argument for perhaps Avalanche and Chainlink, but I think Solana, risk versus reward, I think might be my favorite pick out of the top 20 right now at current market conditions, at current prices, and forward looking. I think that we've had a cool off at retail. We've had a cool off and DeFi, and everyone was kind of bracing for some lower prices. I think that the tariff scare is bottomed out. Bitcoin at 77. And I think we're going to get back onto the races and getting those big headline narratives. I think that Solana is going to steal the show with headline narratives, partnerships, big dApps, just like they did less than 12 months ago when Solana was absolutely crushing it and ripping it and was well over $200.
Forrest,
I think it will be off to the races here soon.
Forrest, what's your Solana thesis here? What's your stance on Solana? You a believer still, or you out?
Look, when you're in a bull market, people are going to speculate on meme coins, and Solana's the meme coin casino. So yeah, I do see it recovering. I do see it doing well. I'm personally not dabbling in Solana right now. Only because I do think that there's going to be certain like I'm kind of torn between like scarce assets in terms of like Bitcoin gold type deal. Whereas like stocks potentially underperform. So it's like, I think you could see that divergence play out into crypto as well. I think like we've already seen like it play out to a large degree over the last like year or two, where it's been like primarily Bitcoin just eating up dominance. And it's been like a very high Bitcoin dominance bull market so far. I do think that we'll get an alt season, and I do think Solana will do well. And if I see a good entry on Solana, I'm happy to jump in.
What is a good entry for us?
Play for meme coins, I'm happy to jump in. But for me right now, I'm like heavy Bitcoin and XRP.
What is
very, very bullish Bitcoin XRP?
Forrest, what is a good entry for you for Solana?
When I say a good entry, I would have to like chart it out. I'd need to like find like a good setup. So obviously, if you bought Solana in line with, any of these, large pullback. And to be honest, like right now, I'll share my screen again. Right now across the board, there's like some screaming setups right now.
lot of inverse head and
Solana's
shoulders,
putting
bro.
in a very nice inverse head and shoulders here. Maybe we get the pullback back down to 112. If we did, I'd probably consider a Solana long into a higher low. If we get this pullback down into like 112 in line with this kind of support over here. So that being said, it's just like I think there's just a lot of good longs right now. I like Ondo, I like XRP, I like real world assets, I like HBAR. But yeah, Solana, if we pull back into 112, I'd strongly consider. I'd say that's, you know, we might not get that pullback if things just stay super bullish, but I think that would be a really solid entry for a trade on Sol.
Yeah,
Otherwise, maybe we just rip through this.
I was going through the charts, and a lot of charts have these inverse head and shoulder setups. We actually hit one on Avalanche. I think it was on the 4-hour. I want to give a shout out to Cyborg Girl. She said, Bitcoin is digital gold, Casper is digital silver, and Fartcoin is digital gas. The big three. No issues there, my friend.
I did want to give a
solid portfolio.
Little love to the chat as well. If you're new, say hello. Love to give you a little recognition, a shout out. We got Crystal, Degenerate, Speculator, Francisco, Cyber Girl, Set, ICP, Bull, Keezy, Bitcoin GTR, also Atomic Ally, Justin X Crypto, David R, Dyna Mike, King, and Dino, GH, and J Trader. To all of you, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Also, we have a couple of our community members in studio. We have Greg Novak and his wife are joining us in studio today. So they're in Vegas. Greg reached out and said, hey, can we come check out the studio? I said, Greg, as long as you're not going to come and pitch me to buy more Dogecoin, then absolutely yes. And so there they are. So to our community, if any of you are ever traveling to Las Vegas and you want to come hang out with us in studio, catch a show, please, we'll be more than happy to host you. And so a big thank you to everyone, and big thank you to Greg and his wife for showing up.
There's a good excuse to travel to Vegas, and that has
Listen, I got to check out the Sin City podcast, guys, man, you know?
Bitcoin
or the conference, yeah.
Conference 2025. It's only a month away. So May 25th, right? Or
27th.
27th. And so next month.
Why does everything happen around me and my wife's anniversary? I'm also stupid for getting married on the 30th of May, which is Memorial Day weekend.
So dumb.
It was a quick wedding. Went to the courthouse. I was like, hey, you want to marry me for some insurance? She's like, sure. I was like, all right, cool.
Huh? That's very romantic.
Yeah.
You kept the pace going, though.
Who's married? Who's not? Let's move on. I do want to share this piece of news here. Exactly. So Binance will list Ondo and Virtual's protocol. It is a little absurd to me, and I agree with Mr. McSleuth here. Binance has listed more base ecosystem tokens than Coinbase has. Now, starting to think some of it has to do with the amount of fees they're able to take if you buy it through a decentralized exchange or buy it through the Coinbase wallet versus on the Coinbase centralized exchange. I don't know, but it's very strange. Forrest, what are your thoughts on these listings? But I specifically want your opinion, if I may, on Virtual's protocol down from $5 to 50 cents.
Yeah, so Virtual's protocol, they're one of the best teams in all of crypto, period. Like not just in like AI, in the AI space, but they're just at the end of the day, one of the best teams in all of crypto. There's a reason that they took that token to 5 billion plus from literally $10 million market cap where they started. So I have faith in the team. The AI narrative, I think, will be durable. It'll be interesting. I lean bullish. I still hold Virtual token. I hold Ondo as well. But yeah, I like Virtual's protocol. And yeah, on the listing thing, I think it's just because Coinbase, they take a lot of fees from Base, and they also have a very large stake in Aerodrome, which is the #1 DEX on Base. So if they list on Coinbase, then they kind of cannibalize their own fees and their own usage of the Base ecosystem. And the Base ecosystem is probably one of their best assets. So they probably want to show really, really good growth on Base. And especially if they're going to, I think they'll launch a Base token, right? So they probably want to, they're probably bullish on chain growth, and they probably want to avoid hurting their growth numbers on
Well, you
base.
got to think,
So,
how do majority of people transact on base? I mean, let's be real. You're going on Coinbase, you're buying Ethereum and converting it, you're paying fees there. I would guess to assume that they probably make a lot more money top to bottom with the bottom line fees accumulated, money generated. I bet you they're making more money in their base token model, DEX model.
Dude, they're crushing
than they are if you bought on their exchange, like in the traditional format where you log in and use their Coinbase services. And so, unless it gets big enough, I feel like Coinbase doesn't want to list it. They probably have the ability to list most of their tokens. They're just like
$5 billion.
Yeah,
it's pretty big.
Well, that's $5 billion,
and they didn't
that's
list
$5
it.
billion in market cap that they can capitalize.
What are they going to wait for? $100 billion to list it?
If they could, then think about the multiple.
No, I agree with
you.
The
multiples of the fees are that much higher. So if it gets to $5 billion, then you know how much money they're making in fees with all transactions. If it gets to $10 billion market cap, the fees would essentially double. The fees would double again at 20. So they're going to hold out as long as possible.
I don't think they're going to list it at all. It's just interesting.
Exactly.
But I'm out first. I'm with you. I hold Virtual's protocol still. I see a lot of FUD from some of the builders in the community. Something about the creator fund that they had, the treasury that hasn't been unlocked for the creators yet, and the amount of either way. When I interviewed Wiki, which by the way, Forrest, that was all because of you. You linked me up with the founder of Virtual, so thank you for that. It was a really good conversation a while ago. But hearing him talk about taking that project, watching it dwindle from 600 million to 6 million, and then they stayed the course, they continued to build and ran that thing to 5. I'm telling you, man, that sounds like, oh yeah, that is one of the hardest things to do when you lose 99% of your value as a company, maybe even as a person, and to continue to build when there's no direct, like immediate financial incentive to do that for a long period of time and to see it through. It's not common. I'll tell you that. It is not common. And so shout out to them. I still hold Virtuals. I also hold on those. So Binance listing, Binance listings used to be, for me at least, a signal to sell, and Coinbase listings were the signal to buy. But now it's flipped. Now we see Binance listings and the price shoots up, Coinbase listings, and we see the price start to tank. I do want to talk a little bit about Ripple, but first, before I talk about Ripple, I want to give a big thank you. Today's show is brought to you by Cam's Blue Wire Technology. Cams, if you're watching, we're going to be calling you. We got our 2 network switches in studio that we need to help set up. And, well, the only company we trust to do that is Cams. And so if you want the same level of service we get, visit BlueWireTech.com or click the link in the description of the video. Forrest, anytime you're on, I can't do you dirty and not talk about XRP. So here you go, my friend. First XRP ETF to go live on Tuesday with launch of Ethereum's leveraged fund. I should have let Rob try to pronounce that. That would have been good TV. The Ethereum 2x long daily XRP ETF, also known as XXRP, they should have done XXXRP, gives investors a 2x leverage exposure to the closely related Ripple token. XXRP will start trading on the New York Stock Exchange ARCA on Tuesday, before a standard spot ETF has been approved. Eric Balchunas, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but he's a senior ETF analyst over at Bloomberg, said, quote, very odd, maybe a first, that a new asset's first ETF is leveraged. Spot XRP still not approved, although our odds are pretty high. What are your thoughts for us? I think we can skip the whole, is XRP's ETF going to get approved? I think we all know it is.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on this before the actual spot ETF? And any kind of unique insight you have for us? Because I feel like you usually have some unique insight for XRP, for the ETF, or anything you really want to kind of talk about.
Yeah, I'm just an XRP gigabull. I think it's going super high. Like $7 to $20+ plus. I mean, 7 conservatively is kind of my base target. This XRP actually launched earlier this week. I bought some already, just in the traditional finance account. Yeah, it's
You
doing
didn't have
like really
you
good
just
volume.
didn't have
Eric
enough exposure to
Balchunas just-
XRP for us. You had to go buy the 2x leverage ETF.
Yeah, you gotta hold the spot. You gotta hold the levered longs. You gotta hold the levered ETF. You gotta have the trifecta, and that's what I'm doing.
Love it.
That's my strategy. But yeah, I think XRP is charting extraordinarily well. I think the fundamentals are very bullish. They just acquired for $1.25 billion, Hidden Road, like one of the largest prime brokers, or the largest for like crypto.
That was a big one.
Yeah, and they do $3 trillion a year in settlements. So, and Ripple's just gonna plug them up with the XRP ledger. So
And the stablecoin too.
I love XRP. Like, outside of the Bitcoin, gold, and silver trades, like XRP is my one like risk trade that I'm like all in on, in terms of just like really believing in it and having high conviction and a significant amount of the portfolio allocated.
Rob, any thoughts or commentary you'd like to add?
No, nothing.
Did you buy
no
the
perspective.
Did you buy the leverage ETF like Forrest?
No perspective on this. That's kind of outside the box. It's very interesting, right? Why would you go levered? And I don't know. It is what it is. I don't know. Very interesting. I'm just kind of sitting back, just kind of like, not gonna buy it myself. I don't really dabble in ETFs, but cool.
I wonder if my father-in-law, when he said he bought 10,000. So Forrest, my father-in-law, okay, lives in Arizona. He's retired, been retired for about 2 years. He bought a little bit of crypto, and he was at my kid's soccer game. I was telling him about BitTensor, and he just went on his Coinbase and just bought like $5,000 worth. So this dude calls my wife and says, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Ask David. I just bought $10,000 worth of XRP. Was that good?" I was like, "Don't have him call me. Have him call my friend Forrest." No, but I was like, why would he ask me after the fact? But I wonder if he bought the levered ETF. I don't know. Either way, here's the other thing too. When you think about economic uncertainty, recession, you always think about like, what are recession-proof businesses? What are recession-proof companies? What are recession-proof cryptocurrencies? And you look at Bitcoin, digital gold. Yes, people are still going to have to send payments back and forth. And if I don't know what percentage of those payments are facilitated on blockchain, then one can argue really during any economic uncertainty, projects like XRP, like XLM, the payments projects, as long as the infrastructure is there and it's actually happening, they're gonna kind of weather the storm no matter what the economic conditions are, right? Just like no matter how broke you are, you still need to drink water, right? And so that's kind of where we're at. I'm done with the show, Forrest. If people enjoyed your analysis today and your thoughts, where should they go?
Yeah, you can head over to Sistine.ai or follow me at Sistine Research on Twitter, and join our Discord community. We run a Discord community with multiple analysts and traders in there, posting some really solid stuff over this latest dip. I think like I said, our entries was buy under 75K Bitcoin. If you don't catch under 75K, anything under 80K is pretty solid. And then we've been pretty bullish on XRP. We caught a couple longs in Curve and Fartcoin. If you had the risk tolerance for those, which is, I understand, tough to do during a pretty big crash, but
Forrest,
you feel free to join the Discord or follow on Twitter or whatever.
I have your Discord pulled up. Do you mind if I just show the different channels? I'm not going to click on any of them because I want.
Oh yeah,
you
can show. I mean, by all means. I mean, it's a constant feed of information. So anything,
guys,
feel free to click into any of those. You can click into my channel and kind of show what we've been talking.
Honestly,
about.
For analysis, this is the most in-depth Discord I've ever been a part of. Like he said, it's not just him, but he's got a bunch of different analysts in there. Also has, I believe you have the AIXBT terminal access, so people can see that. You have Hyblock, you have Glassnode. I mean, all the things you would normally have to pay a lot of money for, and trust me, I've paid money for these. They're all included, and you can see this is just Forrest's channel. So this is a great Discord. I'm in there. I would highly recommend it to anyone who's serious. about crypto and really staying up to date and making money. This is amazing. Also, while you're there, go join our Discord as well. And so, Forrest, big thank you to you, man. We love having you on the show. We love your insight. Rob, anything else?
That's it, baby.
That's it. Rocco. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you. Also, big thank you again to Greg and his wife for joining us in the studio, and a huge thank you to Forrest and the production team and the mods and everyone watching, and even Robin today. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great weekend. Or Monday.
Entertainment and info, gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in. For big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin and sin.